When to take up commercial property. Commercial property is a very, very lucrative investment vehicle. From high income to long leases to just simple tweaks and changes that could generate mass amounts of capital growth. Whether it be adding an extra lease, whether it be adding certain divisions to the property so you can separate them to get to that separate lease, or whether it just be increasing rents to market levels if you've purchased it below, or whether it be certain improvements to the property that make it more simple or attractive for a tenant. So many different ways to go about it and do it. But when to take it up is the hardest question for most investors when they start to think, should I go into it now, later, so forth. Now, as part of their decision making, firstly, I'm going to use examples of when certain clients I've worked with have taken it up, as well as myself when I've jumped into commercial property myself. Now, I think of three moments. Moment number one is at an age at which time may be more limited for cash flow to be returning in your portfolio. Number two is at a moment where you've got a significant residential asset base where you can diversify, attain cash flow, and move on because you feel happy with your portfolio that you have. And then number three is when you've decided commercial property is the only path you want to take, and you just continue to do that ongoing. So when you're looking at investment properties, how do you know which one of the three you fall in? So this is where I'll explain certain characteristics, and if they sort of fit you, then it might help you in understanding it. Number one, the person who is of a certain age or wants to achieve cash flow in a certain time. I've commonly found when working with investors 50 plus that they have prioritized cash flow a little bit more than those who are below 50. And they may feel that, well, in my life, I want to achieve this somewhat called retirement, or at least just having extra income sooner. Now, to get that extra income, commercial property is a great way to start. And so what they decide on is instead of having to buy, 4 or 5 residential properties that may grow in the next 10 to 20 years and they've got this great capital growth, but it's not really the cash flow they want delivered. They want the cash flow yesterday. And to do that, acquiring commercial property, one after the other, and usually with people in this demographic, they've either saved more capital over time, have more super, or have equity from properties or their home even that they've purchased over time. And they just want to move into high income sooner rather than later. So that could be one scenario. Scenario two is basically when you build yourself a residential asset base. Now, I kind of find that when investors have got into this 4 to 7 properties, or for some people it's 5 to 10 properties, they start to feel comfortable with themselves with the residential properties that they've built to date. And what I mean by comfort is this. They're able to look back and go, you know what? If we never bought a property again, and we had these 4 or 5 residential properties and had them for the rest of our life, we'd still feel happy with what we've done because of the growth that could occur and what's happening there. And by getting one more residential property, maybe the 7th, the 5th, the 6th, whatever it may be, the 10th, they don't really feel much new is going to occur than what they've got already, and they feel comfortable that when, hey, one's not rented, the others are. When one gets a maintenance, the others aren't. They don't feel like everything is hitting them at once, and at that stage they go, well, we want to really game change our portfolio and start adding serious incomes. We know we're not going to be able to buy again and again and again in commercial properties so soon because of those higher deposits, harder to find those properties, less properties of those types available with longer leases and so forth. They know that, but they're willing to take it now because they've got those 4 properties, the 5, the 6, the 7, and they want to jump into things that are just extremely passive in income. They are changing their portfolio without doing the same thing again and again, and they feel happy with the amount of properties that they have and what it'll do for them in the next 20 or 30 years anyway. So this is a moment where I feel they're a lot more suited to jumping into commercial property because of risk management. They can diversify, they've got their properties already that they feel satisfied with. They're not relying on this commercial to do everything for them. Number two is they can de-risk themselves from the commercial long vacancies to somewhat of an extent because they feel like they've got multiple rentals. And then number three is they feel like they're ready to transition because they've got the core capital growth generators in their asset base and they want to move on to some very high cash flow assets now. And so this is another type of investor, and we worked with many people, whether it be in their 30s or 40s in age group, that they start to achieve this 4, 5, 6, 7 properties, and at that point they feel ready to make that shift over. And again, whether that's in personal, trusts or supers, that's where they start to shift into that more sophisticated investing. And the last one is basically someone who's completely set on just following commercial property as the only strategy. This person would probably not own any residential property or even own one, but they see that yes, they just want to be a commercial property investor the whole way through. And why I keep mentioning the whole way through is it's important not to dabble. And what I mean by dabble is you go and buy one commercial property, then you go back to buying a bunch of residential, and then you realize that, hold on a minute, yes, that commercial property generated some income, but the risks are far more heightened when you've just got one commercial property to rely on, maybe even two. Vacancy comes up, that's everything. A lease that's perhaps not a property that's not having capital growth, that's your whole portfolio, because it took you a bigger deposit to get that one, it took you a bigger deposit to even get that second. And so naturally, maybe where someone could have bought 2 properties in 3 years, it took you 6 or 7 years because of extra deposit needed. And all it takes is one property to not do so well and 50% of your portfolio is hurt, right? So when I say the whole way through or keep buying commercial, the power of buying 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 commercials is the fact that diversity will be a big positive indicator for you for carrying all these different risks that come with it. And because you'll be able to build up your income very quickly. So that's where I feel the third person or the third type of investor can benefit from jumping into commercial property, when they've made a conscious decision of only buying that asset to build up incomes quickly. They'll slow their acquisition journey down because of the deposits needed, but they'll also completely de-risk themselves from diversification as well. So 3 types of ways: a higher age bracket to achieve cash flow sooner, experienced residential investor to achieve cash flow and move on from the residential assets, or just transitioning commercial all the way through.